Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development, where we share original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We hope you join us often for practitioner-oriented content around all things related to leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations Podcast? Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, share, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, even at the producer and sponsorship levels. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. In this HCI Podcast episode, I talk with Jotham S. Stein about his new book, Negotiate Like a CEO, How to Get Ahead with Lessons Learned from Top Entrepreneurs and Executives. Jotham Stein, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Great to be here, John. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be with you today. And I'm really excited to talk about your new book, Negotiate Like a CEO, How to Get Ahead with Lessons Learned from Top Entrepreneurs and Executives. And I think that's a really important just underlying message in your book, is that we all need to take ownership over our own careers, over our own jobs, and kind of our own career path and trajectory. And it would be really nice if organizations that we work for proactively try to develop us into future leaders and help us generate and develop the competencies and capabilities that we need in our careers. That would be really nice. And I, as an HR professional, an OD and change management consultant, that's something I advocate for in organizations. But the reality is we can't count on that. We can't count on organizations doing it for us. So we have to own it. We have to take responsibility for it, and we have to make it happen. And so having a CEO mindset, I think is very, very important. As we get started, I just wanted to share Jotham's bio with everybody. Jotham S. Stein is the principal of the law offices of Jotham S. Stein, PC. He has more than 25 years of experience representing entrepreneurs, C-suite executives, board members, venture capitalists, private equity principals, investment bankers, as well as employees of companies of all types and sizes. He has negotiated numerous employment agreements, separation agreements, M&A agreements, change in control agreements, stock option agreements, restricted stock agreements, management carve-out agreements, non-compete agreements, and much, much more. Mr. Stein is also a litigator. He has represented individuals and corporate clients in state and federal courts and in multi-district litigation before state and federal agencies and in arbitration, including before JAMS, the American Arbitration Association, and PHRa. He also has served as a part-time general counsel of a high-tech Silicon Valley company. His new book, Negotiate Like a CEO, is an engaging look at how top entrepreneurs and executives protect themselves and how you can too. Again, it's a pleasure to have you. Anything else you would like to share with me or my listeners by way of background, personal context, or your story before we launch on into the conversation about the book?
Not so much about my story, but I would say that I know your podcast is about maximizing your personal and organizational potential, and that's exactly what the book is about from an individual perspective. I regularly wind up telling clients, look out for number one in your employment agreement, meaning you personally, or your offer letter before you actually join the company. And even on the back end, when there's a back end separation negotiation, my words are almost always, maximize your personal return here, because in the back end, the company doesn't want you. On the front end, you want to prepare yourself for a good career.
Is it safe to say that I can't assume that the organization is going to be looking out for my best interests in those situations?
It's safe to say that 100% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you have a tremendous amount of experience in all these forms of agreements, as well as litigation. And obviously that can feel daunting to people. I have to admit, in organizations, when I feel like there's an overly compliance-based culture where it's very legalistic, and where people are always, one way of kind of a crass way of saying it is people covering their butts. That tends, in my mind, to not be the most high engaging and innovative, psychologically safe kind of an organizational culture. Yet it's a really common culture. And so I wonder what your take is on, like, how do you strike the balance between just the grim reality of you got to look out for yourself and you have to make sure that you're covering your bases, as an employer, as an employee, as a leader, but you also want to make sure that people feel like they have the space to experiment and to iterate and to learn and to grow. And sometimes that means, loosening the reins a little bit. There's a tension there, and I'm wondering what your general take is on that.
There definitely is a tension there, but my view is you maximize your personal return in your deal with the company, whether it's on the front end as an offer letter or an employment agreement, or on the back end, and that frees you to do what's necessary at the company to help build the company. And whether that's to operate in this organizational morass, which many very mature companies are, where they can't do anything without 6 people being at a meeting. And you always have to worry about who is trying to, stab you in the back so that they can move up the organizational ladder. Or it's at a startup which is the opposite end of the spectrum, where people are doing much by the seat of their pants, if you will. And you have to be free there as well. So my example in terms of negotiating like a CEO is multiple times in my career, when I've had CEOs, I say, do not get on that plane and start working for that company until you get your deal done personally. So then you're free. Number one, you're free to then operate the company day to day as you want to. Because if the board doesn't like what you're doing, they'll fire you, but you're protected. That's the major theme in the book. And so once they get on that plane, if they were to do that, and I've had that happen, by the way, and plane can be metaphorical. I mean, going to work, right? Sometimes it's on a plane to go someplace. Once that, even a CEO at a CEO level or at a C-suite level, if they get on that plane and start working, there's often months and months and months before they actually get their deal done. And sometimes they don't get every one of their, everything they've been asking for or want to negotiate, even get negotiated or done. So that's the way, if you're protected in employment, whether it's a one-page offer letter that you've protected your equity or some severance or medical payments, if that's important to you for COBRA, or a 20-page employment agreement where you're protected. Once that happens, then you go into an employment. If you have the tensions like you're describing, if you have the politics with a small p, not a big P, a small p, where you've got to figure out what every unit is doing and you can't do stuff because somebody else may complain, or you're at the startup or a mid-level company, then you're free to act because you've essentially have your own insurance policy in place. You've protected your downside personally so that you're more free actually to reach the potential for the organization. I like that. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I tend to be a trusting person. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I like to think that they have the best of intentions. I would say maybe I'm just a naive, optimistic person, but I would say, generally speaking, most people want to do well by others. Most people want to have integrity and live up to their word and such. But I have to say, I've been bit in the butt several times in the past, just because things that we were very clearly agreed upon, even over email, but certainly spoken, and hadn't been finalized yet in a formal document. We move forward in good faith, recognizing there was an agreement, and then they balk, they change the agreement, they end up you feel like you're thrown under the bus a little bit. And that's happened to me several times. I've seen it happen to other people several times. Again, I'm probably just being naive about how I approach that, and other people would say, well, business isn't personal, whatever. But the reality is you do have to make sure that you get things in writing. You do have to make sure, even when you think everyone trusts each other and everyone has the best of intentions, people's memory fades, people's understanding of what was agreed upon may fade over time. And so even without any particular malice, things can get dropped or lost in the shuffle, and you end up not having the protections you thought you were going to have. or you end up not getting, all the things that you felt like you agreed upon?
Yes, actually, I was smiling when you were telling me the story about when you were talking about how you've been bit in the butt, because the first thought is you should have read my book earlier in your life. Of course, I hadn't written it then, but because you're absolutely 100% right. Listen, there are people as honest as the day is long out there. There are people who shake a hands on a contract and they'll do exactly what they intended, and their memory is such that they will do exactly what was agreed on. But in reality, and I'm not even saying it's a majority of the time, but in reality, what you described happens a lot. People's memories fade, or even worse, money becomes involved, a job becomes involved, and so you get thrown under the bus. And this happens at every level. It happens from the entry level, just out of college. You're getting a job, all the way to the CEO level. So that's the point about protecting yourself, entering into what I call professional prenuptial agreement. You can't cover everything you're going to do in work, because things change. But what you can do is protect your personal labor, the value of your labor, which often is equity. It might be commissions. It might be separation agreements. So if you do get kicked out, because things change, and they change for good reasons and they change for bad reasons. And if you get kicked out, that you have a platform, a soft landing, so that you can reincarnate yourself, get another job, change careers, whatever it is you want to do. And what you've described is things go wrong for many different reasons. Sometimes they go wrong for Machiavellian reasons, like people are out there and they'll stab you in the back, and that's to get a promotion, to protect their job, because they're afraid. Frankly, because they may want your equity, they may want your stock. So they in the startup world, you get fired because somebody else wants your stock. But it also happens with no malice at all. People's memories fade, as you described, or there's some psychological, I'm not a psychologist, but psychologically, people believe certain things that happen in time because either they want to believe it, or that's the most recent information they have. And so they would actually pass a lie detector test. When you know that 2 years ago you agreed on X, they would testify, and they'd believe, and they pass a lie detector test that actually what you agreed on was Y, which is throwing you under the bus. And they would be honest about it. It's just the way the mind works. So I'm not presupposing, when I say everyone should protect themselves, that it's necessarily malicious.
Right.
It could be totally well-intentioned, but
it happens. Yeah.
But
regardless of intention, it happens. And so
exactly.
you do have to be careful. And I like how you're framing this. And again, you're not framing it, in my mind, it's not really a fear-based framing. You're saying, let's do this. Let's get it out of the way. Let's make sure that we have the agreements in place, that everyone's on the same page. We can hold each other mutually accountable, and then just get it out of the way so you can do your work and not worry about it. Right.
Exactly. Listen, and all of the concepts in this protection is get it out of the way. And if you've been acting in the best interest of the company, although the company may decide they don't want you anymore for any number of reasons, you get your protection, you get your insurance. And I can describe what that might be. And if you've done your best, if you've done something really wrong, you've embezzled, you shouldn't get anything. And that's what the way contracts are written. There's something called cause, and the employee wants the executive or the entrepreneur or the new employee wants to narrowly define cause. And of course, the company wants to make it so broad that everything is cause. But that's a sort of another discussion. But the issue is, get it out of the way, your personal protection. So if you don't have to worry at night, you're doing the best job you can, and you know that if you get terminated, let's just use equity, you'll have a year of acceleration, or you'll have all the acceleration of your equity. So then you could go out and do your job without the worry all the time that you have to look behind your back. I mean, you're going to look behind your back anyway, because that's the natural way of doing things, and nobody likes to get fired. No matter how secure you are, it's a wrenching experience. Even for people who want to get fired because they have great employment agreements, it's still tough on that day, right? But at least you can be free in the organization to do what you believe is necessary. Otherwise, what you have is, particularly mature organizations, people don't even try to create. They don't even try to innovate, because it could be such a downside to them that they figure, okay, we'll just go along. Or they innovate at this level when they should be trying to innovate at this level. I mean,
Right. Yep. Well, good. So I think you've given us a good framing for the book and really even, the main purpose of the book. But I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to share in terms of just why this book, why now, what inspired you to write the book in the first place? Check out my new book, The Future Leader: Creating and Transforming Next-Gen Organizations. Stemming from 2 decades of professional experience and over 600 in-depth interviews with executives, thought leaders, and scholars from across the globe, The Future Leader will help you explore the ordinary, everyday actions that will help you to prepare to lead in the future of work, to respond to an uncertain future, and to produce extraordinary results for individuals, teams, and organizations. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Academy. Courses, micro-credentials, and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. All HCI Academy courses, micro-credentials, and certificates are designed, developed, and delivered by award-winning and internationally renowned scholars, educators, thought leaders, executives, and practitioners. Our courses, micro-credentials, and certificates will help you make your mark on the future of work and make an immediate impact in your organizations. Check out the HCI Academy and our many course offerings and certificates to upskill and reskill for the future of work. Check out our new weekly LinkedIn newsletter, Alchemizing Human Capital, exploring industry trends via original research and interviews with executives and thought leaders from across the globe. We look forward to having you join us.
I'd say a couple of things. First, the book is not only fiction, nonfiction, which is how to protect yourself, what to look out for in employment. I also wrote, and I had a fun time doing it, 59 fictional stories. They're sort of repeats. If you were in the repeat events that happen over and over and over again, and so I sat in a Pete's Coffee and I wrote these stories, which I hope are very entertaining for the reader, but they underscore exactly what we're talking about. So, including getting forced out or pushed out of a company. There are multiple different ways that can happen, and 3 or 4 or so of the 59 stories are about that. Why I wrote the book is because I have all this experience. Like I can't say I've seen everything, because every day or every week I see something new, but I've seen quite a bit over the 25 years at all different levels, and from the best things that happen, IPOs going, people exiting, people becoming what we call financially independent, them moving along the trajectory of their career and really succeeding. And I've seen on the back end a lot of nasty, bad stuff, and where people get forced out for all sorts of reasons, including, sad to say, by people who stood up at their wedding. And so I wanted to bring that to the readers. I wanted to share my experience and actually help them. That was the purpose of the book, that and having a fun time writing it. And one of the fascinating things about employment is, as you must know from your career, looking at it from the other perspective, is that it's so much part of our lives. We spend so much time in a job and in our career and in protecting our family and doing what we do all day. And yet so many people, most people don't know much about the employment dynamics, what happens, why you would need an offer letter, what the company's interest, for example, in broadening the definition of cause is, what good things can happen in an organization and what bad things, and how to read the tea leaves. And sometimes reading the tea leaves means you know that you're not going to succeed there no matter how much you try in this organization. So best to get out and find a new job. And all of those things that happen, all these agreements, NDAs, management carve-out agreements, non-compete agreements, employment agreements, change of control agreements, all that stuff I know intuitively now after 25 years. And it's fascinating to me that even the shrewdest, the most accomplished employees, executives, entrepreneurs sometimes have no idea about the dynamics, the employment relationship, what the other side might be thinking, whether the other side is the boss or an organization or a potential acquirer or the investors. And so I wanted to help people, and that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. And what do you see as some of the most common ways that executives or leaders in organizations tend to get taken advantage of by their companies?
They do what you say is more your personality, as they trust everything is going to work out well. And organizations change. There are competing considerations. People don't always agree with you. Board members might not agree with you at the C-suite level. Your CEO might not agree with you, or they might need somebody to take the fall so they can continue to work there. And everybody thinks it's going to work well. I have that same view. I always look at somebody and think positively about them, but they get taken advantage of because at the time of the exit, they don't receive as much in a separation agreement, in a back-end separation agreement, as they would have had they used their leverage on day one. And listen, it's tough. The reason why you want to negotiate like a CEO is most CEOs, the overwhelming number of CEOs, negotiate their severance agreement on day one. All right. They come to the company they're going to run and they have their exit already planned. Now, do any of them think they're going to exit when they start a company? No, or almost none. I can't say no for everybody, but they're doing it to protect their downside. Because those that don't, whether it's at the C-suite level or whether it's individuals who have leverage going in, and there are many first year, second year employees that might have more leverage than they think, especially in this environment where companies are looking to hire. And I use as an easy example, coders, people who do coding. They are in such big demand that they get great salaries. I'm always amazed. The first year out of undergraduate, I mean, they got more salary than I got coming out of law school. Now I know that was a long time ago, but they can protect themselves sometimes at that level. But it's tough, right? The CEO comes in and says, "You give me a severance agreement on day one, a professional prenuptial agreement." Which is called an employment agreement, but what it's really doing is protecting the downside on the back end, a separation agreement. But everyone else, they come in and they think, well, if I ask for something to protect myself, I'm signaling that it might not work out, and that's a bad thing because I want to go in 100% to show this company I'm 100% behind them. But the fact of the matter is, you're just acting shrewdly, and if you're at the C-suite level, and I sometimes have this, what kind of CEO is hiring an EVP or a VP would want to hire that person if they didn't have a lawyer, right? In this world, you would want to have a lawyer to help you, to protect yourself so that you can be free and to use your skills moving on. Now, but it's still tough, right? It's the idea that I'm going to ask for something on the back end because it might not work out. And that's a disconnect, personal and psychological disconnect that happens a lot.
Yeah. And if it is an organization where the person hiring you doesn't like the fact that you're asking about that, doesn't like the fact that you're trying to get your ducks in a row and get these agreements in place, that's a red flag. And maybe you should be looking somewhere else, right?
That's true. It is a red flag because it may indicate a culture or just an individual, a boss, that has sort of a command and control mindset and not collaborative. However, I have to say that it also is part of nature too, a natural thought process. So there are many managers out there who don't themselves have protection. So they're going to say, why the heck should I give you something that I don't have? And I came in here and it's worked out for me. And so therefore it's the company sees it, the individual sees it as a red flag. So it's which they should not, because often that manager or manager's CEO has a great protection, as do everybody at the C-suite level. But and so organizationally, the organization would they may not want to give you what you're asking for at a lower level or at an entry level. They may push back on it for organizational reasons, but the respect at the senior level that you're asking for it might be there. Whereas in the organization in the middle, they're considering that a red flag. It's not corporate deviance, but it's corporate misalignment, if you will. But that happens a lot in reality. And you know what? I've had lots of employees, clients from every level, including all the way to the CEO level, that says, thank you for fully informing me about this employment agreement. Thank you for telling me the risks I'm taking, and I'm going to take those risks anyway. And I'm not going to ask for A, B, and C. One of the stories in my book is about it's called something like they cheated me, but I did okay anyway. It's which is a repeat situation you have at a C-suite level. Somebody does not negotiate for everything. They know they're taking the risk, and it's happened to me with repeat clients. They're very happy. They get fully informed. They say, Jotham, I'm not gonna protect myself here. And I've had people call me up and say, you know what? I got ripped off. They didn't pay me X, but you know what? I did Y. I got Y. I got $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in just 2 or 3 years. That's a great return. If I had listened to you, I would have gotten a much better return. But it's okay. I knew what I was doing when I went in. So what I mean to say by that story in the book is, and also what I'm telling you now is, discussing now is that, it's all about risk taking, right? You have to make a business decision. And a lot of people say, thank you, I'm taking the risk. And so, but if you do that, you want to do that with your eyes wide open, right? You want to know what can happen. And in part so that if it happens, you feel better about yourself. But also if it happens or starting to happen, you can hopefully transition out to a new position before the negative does happen. The risk you've taken does happen.
Yeah. Excellent. And yeah, just again, it's important to protect yourself, get things taken care of on the outset so that you can free yourself up to just not even worry about it and to just focus on doing your work, doing a good job, being strategic, innovating, all those things, all those good things. And we want to be able to just get to that point and where we're not constantly worrying about, well, what if, and what's going to happen to me, blah, blah, blah. Like just get all that stuff done from the outset. Now, I will also say, and I'll make a pitch for anyone listening who's an executive or organizational leader. Like it is never okay to exploit your people. And it's never okay. Like we do need to have some integrity. Can I count on that from the organization? No. So that's why we need to have protections in place. But let's also do right by our people. Let's not exploit them. Let's not take advantage of them. Let's not try to get away with doing as little as possible. But rather let's really treat people as though they are valued. If we believe they're important to our organization, let's show them that we value them, and let's honor agreements, and let's not look for loopholes and try to find ways that we can throw people under the bus. So that's maybe this utopian ideal world that I'm hoping for at some point in the future. I also recognize the reality. And so that's why we need to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe. And ultimately, let's just get things in writing. And that way both sides are happy and both sides can move forward in good faith and make sure good things are happening.
I do want to say there are many, many companies where the corporate culture is positive in the way you just described. It's collaborative. And even when they come to terminate an employee, they treat them well. And there are many mature companies that do that way. And there are many even startups that work that way. People, it really depends on who the managers are in the corporate culture. And there are some companies that are sort of in the middle. They have what's called an ERISA separation plan. So you look at a plan if you're trying to be terminated, and they put that in place. And so if you've been there a certain number of years and made a certain amount of money, here's what you get on the back end. Those are severance plans that are put in place, and they are you can actually check out on a chart where you fall on that. And there are some that do that, give beneficent good exit packages for everyone, because they want to have that kind of corporate culture. And there are many companies out there. And like I think I said earlier, there are many people as honest as the day is long, and they come to terminate an employee and they treat them well, even if they don't have an employment agreement. The problem is that this is a big world and this is a big country, and there are certain companies that are run just the opposite. The mindset of the managers, it's not the way I would run a company, but I don't run all the companies. And, it's to set people off against each other and to have people running around in fear, essentially, from every level. And so, you sometimes, many times, you're not sure what kind of company you're entering into. With employment, as hard as you try, you won't know until you're there. That's the idea of protecting yourself in case things go wrong. And we hope they go right. And they may even go right a majority of the time. But if they go wrong 20% of the time, or 10% or whatever it is, that's what you're protecting against. So you're not stuck because somebody stabbed you in the back, or for one reason or another, or things didn't go well. And listen, many times people are unsuccessful at the first company they go to, the second company they go to, and then they're stars at the third company, and they rise up at a mature company, or they bring a startup public. So not every place is right for everyone. Not every career is right. Not every position is right. Which is also
absolutely.
Another thing. You can reincarnate yourself. You shouldn't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Jotham, this has just been a real pleasure. I know at the time I'm going to have to let you go here in just a minute, but before we wrap up for today, I wanted to give you a chance to share with listeners how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us a final word on the topic for today.
So if you want to buy Negotiate Like a CEO, you can just go to Amazon and type in Negotiate Like a CEO into Amazon books, and then it will come up. If you'd like to learn more about the book or more about me, you can go to negotiatelikeaceo.net. That's negotiatelikeaceo.net. And you will see information about the book, so you can think about whether you want to buy it. You could buy it on the website. You'll see a way to contact me. There's a contact page, and even some of these fictional stories I described. There's two on the website. I think about the book, or one of the sections of the book, and you can read them and see whether they entice you to buy the book. So that's how to get a hold of me and the book. You could also type in, I think you can just Google Negotiate Like a CEO, and it will come up. And I think what comes up is Amazon and whatever other booksellers there are. And that would get you to where you want to go if you want to buy the book. Final word, I guess, is thank you very much for having me on the show. And it was a great conversation. I know there's sort of two ends of the spectrum, looking out for the individual and then looking out for the organization. I think we covered certainly the individual here, but also with a reflection on how organizations work, and hopefully everything works out for all your listeners in their career. But if they don't, if it doesn't, you want to protect yourself from the beginning, and that's the theme of the book. And I appreciate very much being on your show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jotham. It's been a pleasure. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected, find out more about what Jotham can do for you, check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership, the journey of becoming a truly remarkable leader. Early in my adult life, I learned about an Asian proverb that translates as bluer than indigo. If you think about the color indigo, it is a brilliant, deep, and vibrant blue, what some would call the bluest of blues. To have something that is bluer than indigo is rare and truly remarkable. Contrary to popular myth, there is no one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach to effective leadership. There is no silver bullet, no secret sauce, no go-to model that will solve all of your problems. The truth is, great leaders have all had their unique strengths and flaws, and have all had to discover and then pave their own distinctive path in their life's journey to fulfill their leadership potential. Bluer Than Indigo Leadership will help you discover your own path and explore those ordinary, everyday actions that will help you respond to an uncertain future and produce extraordinary results for your individuals, teams, and organizations. Check out Human Capital Innovations magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine with the mission to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We publish issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Take a look at the latest issue and let us know what you think. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership. Ordinary, everyday actions that produce extraordinary results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. Do you enjoy the Human Capital Innovations podcast? Please subscribe, leave a review, comment, share, and consider supporting the podcast on Patreon, even at the producer and sponsorship levels. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.